Well, thank you very much, Jim. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
You understand the southern accent all right? Okay. Look, I'm sorry for some of you who hear the same jokes over and over again. I want to tell a story just to start off with. I know there's at least one refugee from California here, but there's a few in the room, and you'll relate to this. I was in Los Angeles, and I walk up to a street vendor, and I bought some food. He gave me the money, the change, and he said, "You've got an accent. Where are you from?" I said, "Well, I'm from New Zealand." He said, "Well, where's that?" So, to make it really, really easy for him, I said, "Look, it's down near Australia." He said, "Where Arnold Schwarzenegger came from." So never let your education system get like California's. But as I'm from New Zealand, people always ask me the same thing, you know. I've been all over your beautiful country, and this is one of my very favourite states, and I've got a lot of good friends in this state. And I've got to say, you're very well organised here. I'm very, very pleased at what I see here. I think it's going to go very well in the 2020 elections for us. People always ask, you know, why would I care about America? You know, I've got a perfectly good country down in the Pacific. And I'd say there are two reasons. The first is gratitude. You know, my country was facing invasion during World War II from the Imperial Japanese Army. And if it hadn't been for the sacrifice of your fathers and uncles and grandfathers at the battles of Guadalcanal and the Coral Sea and Midway, we would have been done, folks. It's a very strong memory even today. The second reason is related, but it's a little more selfish. You know, Ronald Reagan had it right. This is the last best hope for mankind. If freedom should ever fail in the United States, if you lose your constitution, your liberty, your economic dynamism, and your military superiority, all of which took a huge trashing through the Obama years, had that continued, people, we would soon be living in a world run out of Moscow and Beijing and Tehran and Havana. And is that the kind of world you'd like to leave to your children and grandchildren, people?
No.
So anybody who cares about liberty has to care about this country. Because if this country goes, there ain't nowhere to run. There ain't nowhere. And now people say, look, can I come down and live in New Zealand? And I say, well, as long as you learn Chinese, you'll be fine. You know, because they are already knocking on our doorstep, folks. They are buying up our politicians, they are buying up our land, our utilities. Recently, not long ago, the Australian Minister of Defence, now if you don't know where Australia is, it's a little island off our west coast. Okay? But anyway, he was up in China for talks, and a top Chinese general publicly said to him, Australia needs a godfather. Will it be an American godfather or a Chinese godfather? If you are smart, you will choose China because we are the growing power in the region. How do you think we felt when Obama was gutting the 7th Fleet, people, and bringing you out of the Pacific? It was not a good feeling, I'll tell you. So, America is the last stand. Now, I want to say a couple of things now about the 2016 election. And the first thing I'll say, does anybody think there might have been a touch of the miraculous on that election? Just a little? Okay. Even the atheists would have to agree with that. Okay. Because we all knew Hillary was going to win. It was all preordained, but it didn't happen. But I see that election, and I'm sure you don't, but there's some on our side who think, well, Trump got in, it's all over now, we can just go on living our lives. He's got it in hand. Yeah, like George Washington won the revolution all by himself, you know. And so, but I see it a little bit differently. That election gave us a second chance, maybe a last chance. You know, the country had been going to socialism for 100 years, was on the edge of the cliff, and was about to go over, and we got pulled back. Well, if you look at the Old Testament, it was a lot of times when the Israelites got a second chance, right? You know, you're not doing the right thing, I'll give you another chance. But how many times did they get a third chance? So we're on our second chance, people, and we better use it. I don't have to tell you, I know you all know this. The other thing I'll say, a little more cynical. Now, the Germans have a wonderful phrase, it's Schadenfreude. It means to take pleasure in the pain of others. And it's not a noble thing, right? You don't boast about it. But on election night 2016, about 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sure you're all watching, when they panned the Democratic Party headquarters in New York, and you saw those little snowflakes bawling their eyes out looking at each other, did you feel a little bit of schadenfreude? And do you think after 8 years of Obama trashing your country, maybe you deserved it? Well, imagine how much you're going to feel in 2020, folks. Imagine. If that felt good in 2016, it's going to feel way better in 2020. And that should be an incentive in itself. So what we're talking about here, Bishop Jackson and I, we will stand against communism. And people say, well, communism died, and they were saying this till 5 years ago. Communism died in, 1989, 91. It was all over. The Berlin Wall fell. But look, say if you compare the Soviet Union, if you compare communism to a cancer, something that parasitizes a body and grows till it destroys its own host. If you compare the Soviet Union, say you cut out 90% of the cancer, you destroy most of the Soviet Union, not all of it, but you leave China and Cuba and North Korea, and you cut that out. If you cut out 90% of a tumor in your body, then stop all treatment for 20 years, what are you going to look like? You're dead. You're going to metastasize. It's going to go everywhere. Compare communism to organised crime, which is very much a parallel, because it's really a criminal political system. Say if you were a law enforcement officer in New York and you took out the Gambino family, the one of the 5 big families, you took them out. You said, it's all over, we've defeated the mafia, it's all over now. And you just stopped all law enforcement for the next 20 years. What would New York look like by then?
Chicago.
Like it is now, yeah. Like Chicago, yeah. But the point is this, communism will always be with us. Like organised crime will always be with us. Like cancer will always be with us. It is the dark side of human nature organised in a scientific manner. We've always had some form of communism right back to the days of the pharaohs, and we always will. It might be called something else, but it'll always be that collective tyrannical streak in humanity that is organised and attracts the power-hungry people who spend all their time trying to basically make you their slaves. That's what it is, and that will never go away. So we've always got to be vigilant. They say, well, there's no communism in America. Well, what's Black Lives Matter? That's controlled by the Freedom Road Socialist Organisation, a pro-Chinese communist group. What was the Women's March? 1 million women, protesting Trump with their funny hats on, led by Linda Sarsour, who's a Marxist, but also Judith LeBlanc of the Communist Party USA. All of the leaders of that movement are communist people. And I guarantee you most of the women who marched with their silly hats had no idea they were being used. Every college campus in this country is infested by communists and Marxists. Most of your churches are now infested by communism and Marxism. Catholics know the problem with the Pope, but it's also, yeah, exactly, but it's also now in the evangelical churches. It's even the Southern Baptists are picking up this stuff now. So you have a cancer spreading through your society. Now, has anybody in the room ever had to undergo any form of FBI background check or security check for a government position? Yeah, okay, about a quarter of the room, okay? Now, is it true that those checks are pretty darn rigorous? Yep, so they'll go and check out your family background, they'll interview your pastor, your childhood friends, check your finances, overseas travel, criminal convictions, bounce checks, everything. Because they need to know that you're a trustworthy individual. Because they understand, you know, what did your founding fathers say when they gave you that famous oath that the military take? I will defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, right? Because they understood that America would be very hard to take from the outside, so it would probably be done from the inside. So they understood that. Now, so if you're a member of Congress, or say you're a young Marxist radical, or you hang around with some Muslim Brotherhood front group, and you get elected to Congress because the local Democratic Party is just full of radicals, and you call yourself a Liberal Democrat, and you get appointed to the Homeland Security Committee, or the Armed Services Committee, or even the Intelligence Committee of the House of Representatives, how much of an FBI background check do you need for that?
No.
Zero. Nothing at all. Because the people are supposed to vet the candidates, right? And the media is supposed to help you do it, right? Well, how's that been working out? You see the problem there straight away. So there's zero background checks in Congress. You can serve on the Armed Services Committee, have access to all sorts of defence data, and there's no background checks. Do you think foreign enemies may be aware of this? Do you think the Cubans know about this, or the Iranians, or the Russians, or the Chinese? And your congressmen are mixing with these people and playing golf with them, going to parties with them. Do you not think they might try and co-opt some of your congressmen? You think they'd be stupid enough not to? No background checks in Congress whatsoever. But we have a last line of defence, right? Because the media's not going to touch them. There's no background checks, but we have the FBI, right? Federal Bureau of Investigation, who is charged with rooting spies and terrorists and communists and radicals out of your government. That's their job. And we saw what a fine job they did with Hillary Clinton, right? They just didn't leave her alone, right? They just hammered in to find the truth and prosecute her just as she deserved to be prosecuted. Is that how it worked? Well, why would they? Because she might be their boss one day. You think they're stupid enough to attack the person who's going to be their boss? So there's a big weakness in your system, folks. Now, the Judiciary Committee. The Judiciary Committee of the House of Representatives is the body that oversees the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Justice Department. Now, so the federal FBI is supposed to catch the bad guys and the Justice Department is supposed to prosecute them. Again, that's gone a little bit astray in recent times, right? And just by the way, Comey was a communist in college, as was Mr. Brennan. You should read that wonderful book, The Red Thread by Diana West. And she says basically most of what we call the deep state, nearly all these people have communist backgrounds. All of these people are communists, folks. And that's why they want to bring this president to his knees. So the FBI is supposed to do this. It's controlled by it was overseen by the Judiciary Committee. Now, does anybody remember a congressman called John Conyers? Yeah. He served for 140, 160 years in Congress. One of your since 1962, I believe he was there. And I would say he's one of your most dangerous, treasonous congressmen. You know, he was the man who was the chairman of the Judiciary Committee for more than 40 years. He oversaw the FBI for 40 years. He was the man who abolished your House Un-American Activities Committee, one of your last lines of defense against internal subversion. He had a 50-year history with the Communist Party USA. His father was active before him. 40 years with Democratic Socialists of America. He was at their founding conference. And DSA is actually more left-wing than the Communist Party. He had a 30-year history with the Workers' World Party, which supports North Korea and Cuba and Iran. And he was a very active supporter of several Muslim Brotherhood front groups. Now, if you're not sure who the Muslim Brotherhood is, they were formed in Egypt in the late 1920s as a secret society to re-establish the caliphate, worldwide Islam. And they worked with the Nazis in World War II, then they worked with the Soviet KGB after that, which taught them their tradecraft. So they are the father of Hamas and Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They are banned in Egypt and Saudi Arabia and several other countries, but here they work openly through the Council on American Islamic Relations, Muslim Student Association, and many other groups. And your congressmen and senators are in bed with them in a big way. So when some of your Republicans tried to get the Muslim Brotherhood designated as a subversive organization, which a terrorist group, which it actually is, John Conyers says, oh no, we can't do that. They're a peaceful social service agency now. We should be working with them, not against them. Right. On that committee with John Conyers, for a long time you had Luis Gutierrez from Illinois, who was a former leader of the pro-Cuban Marxist-Leninist Puerto Rican Socialist Party, active with the Communist Party and several Muslim Brotherhood front groups. On that committee now you have a woman called Judy Chu from California, from the San Gabriel Valley, a long-time supporter of the Communist Workers' Party, the most militant pro-Chinese group in the country, goes to China all the time to build business ties between China and California, has been described as China's best friend in your Congress by the Chinese press. And you should see Judy Chu attack the FBI whenever they have the temerity to arrest one of the more than 25,000 Chinese spies currently working in this country. You are racist, she says. The FBI is a racist organization. You're only persecuting these poor people because you hate Asians. And she has arranged for sensitivity training for these cruel FBI agents so they don't persecute these poor Chinese people. Now, Sean Hannity and others have been really upset recently because you've got a socialist in Congress, Ocasio-Cortez. This is something really new apparently, and they're tearing their hair out. How could America have an open socialist in Congress? The Green New Deal, which Stalin would have been proud of, Medicare for all these things, and they're right to call her out. But the head of the Judiciary Committee, the man that will be leading the impeachment of your president if it gets off the ground, is a man called Jerry Nadler from New York. Jerry Nadler has been an active member or supporter of Democratic Socialists of America since at least 1977. He is a Marxist, folks. Yet he heads the FBI, he basically oversees the FBI with Judy Chu and all the other Marxists. So what's going to happen if the FBI says, Mr. Nadler, Mrs. Chu, we have information that some of our congressmen are disloyal and we need to investigate them. May we have some money for that? And just by the way, you are both on the list. How do you think that's going to go, folks? You think the FBI is going to bite the hand that feeds them? You have got, I'll give you one more example. Andre Carson from Indiana, one of your 3 Muslim members of Congress. Big time supporter of the Muslim Brotherhood. I've got him on tape, my movie. He gets up in front of a Muslim Brotherhood front support group in Connecticut in 2012. And he says, people, I've been told there are people in the audience that are here spying on us. They're here undercover because they believe we are here plotting to destroy this country. Well, I say to you spies, I say to you undercover people, Allah will not allow you to stop us. This man serves on the Intelligence Committee, people, overseeing the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the DEA, you name it. There's at least 4 Marxists on the Intelligence Committee, at least 5 on the Homeland Security Committee, including the chairman, Benny Thompson, a similar number, several Communist Party supporters on the Armed Services Committee. Every committee in your Congress is infiltrated by Marxists, and many of them are led by Marxists. And it's a similar situation in the US Senate, and just thank God that the Republicans are in charge in that body. You have got at least 100 members of your House right now and 20 members of the Senate who are so enmeshed in neo-communism, involved with the Cubans, the Chinese, the Nicaraguans or the Venezuelans, they couldn't pass an FBI background check to drive a school bus. But there are no background checks, so they're okay. How can you survive when 20% of your government is working for the other team, people? That's your problem. That's why all these bad laws get passed. That's why you can never get anything done. That's why you've got $15 an hour minimum wages, nuclear deal with Iran, Obamacare, immigration amnesty. All these are communist policies pushed through your government by the Marxists and traitors within your Congress and your Senate. People who completely are dedicated to destroying your constitution and your way of life because they have a socialist dream, folks. And it's right now. It's not 50 years ago, it's now. So, what about the presidential candidates? Okay, because once you get to that level, surely there'll be no radicals left at that level. Right? And we all know Barack Obama was a super patriot and loved this country and the Constitution and all that kind of thing. Barack Obama couldn't have passed a background check to work in the post office, people. There is no way, with his extensive communist, Islamist, and even terrorist connections through Bill Ayers and Rashid Khalidi and others, there's no way he could have got any job at any level of the US government if they'd applied the proper tests. But he was, well, didn't even have that. But you know, but he was president for 8 years, folks. The damage he did to this country is, you will be feeling it for years. The damage he did to your military alone could put millions of Americans' lives at risk. He's just a disaster. That's what happens if you have no background checks and you just take people on face value. Now, let's look at the current top five. You know, there's about 23 Democrats got in the race, and it's come down to about 5 now. You've got Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie, and Biden. Okay. Now Biden is the moderate of the bunch, right? He's the moderate one. He's the old-fashioned blue-collar Democrat that we all grew up with, and many of us probably once were. Now Joe Biden, we said he's got a little bit of trouble with his son involved in the Ukraine. But you got to understand, the Ukraine was run at that time by pro-Russian elements. They kicked them out, and now it's anti-Russian. But when Bo Biden was doing his dirty deals, that was when the Russians were in control. He was working with the Russians, people. And so, but if you look at, you go right back, Joe Biden was elected in 1972 as a 29-year-old city councillor. That's what he was. And he beat a 4-term popular senator. It was considered impossible. The reason he did it, he was backed by an organisation called the Council for a Livable World. And they were set up in 1962 by a man called Leo Szilard. And the idea was you get some money together and you invest in far-left Senate candidates in small states. Small states means a small budget. You can get a senator elected in Delaware or New Hampshire or Maine a lot cheaper than you can in California or Texas. So they concentrated in those states, South Dakota, Maine, etc. They picked these far leftists, and the deal was, we'll get you elected, but we want you to work for nuclear arms control and the gutting of the US military. That was your mission. The Council for a Livable World was founded, Leo Szilard founded it. He was a Hungarian communist who became a Manhattan Project scientist, helped to develop your atom bomb, was a major security risk. And after he'd done that job, he set about disarming America to the benefit of the Soviet Union. Now, according to Pavel Sudoplatov, who was a top-ranking Soviet intelligence officer who defected and wrote a book, Leo Szilard was a fully recruited Soviet agent. Fully recruited. So he basically set up the organization that got Joe Biden elected. The man who actually put it all together was a man called Al Gore Sr. You might know his son, okay? The man who invented the internet and global warming, okay? Well, Al Gore Sr. was a protege of another man called Armand Hammer. Some of you may have heard of him. One of the leading Soviet agents of the 20th century. Lenin's friend, the man who kept the Bolshevik Revolution alive and made millions of dollars doing it. He had two Soviet agents who basically got him into power. And he worked every day while he was in your Senate to gut your military, cancel your weapons programs. He boasts, and I've got him on tape saying this, he said at their 50th anniversary, he said, I have worked with the Council for a Livable World for my entire political career. They have helped me every step of the way, and they just helped us to negotiate the START II treaty with Russia, which happened under Obama, which gave the Russians a huge advantage over the United States. He has worked to the benefit of Russia and China his entire political career. They got him into power and have been his friend ever since. Extremely dangerous man. Extremely dangerous. So what about little Pete Buttigieg from Indiana? You know, he's a cute little guy, right? He's just a nice, sensible young man and very Midwestern values. Has anybody ever heard of a man called Antonio Gramsci? Well, he was an Italian communist, the leading theoretician of the Italian Communist Party. And he is the guiding light of today's communist movement. Because he had the idea, all your racial politics, political correctness, all comes out of Gramsci. It's all Gramsci. He had the idea, you don't have a workers' revolution. That's not going to work, especially not in America, because people don't buy into this class struggle garbage. What you've got to do is get into all the institutions and change the people's consciousness. You got to get into the churches, you got to get into education, into the unions, into both political parties, and you've got to change the culture of the people until they welcome socialism. A little bit like the Bernie kids today, right? They are Gramsci's children, completely Gramsci's children. And so Pete Buttigieg's father was Joseph Buttigieg. He died earlier this year, and he was the leading Gramsci scholar in the world. He was president of the World Gramsci Society. What do you think Pete used to talk about over breakfast with his dad? Now, Democratic Socialists of America is a Gramsciist organization. Pete was on their mailing list as a teenager. He won an essay competition, went to national essay competition, all about his great socialist hero Bernie Sanders, and has worked heavily with Democratic Socialists of America in South Bend, Indiana, has backed their strikes, and he was just over in Cape Cod less than a month ago supporting one of their strikes amongst bus drivers on Cape Cod. Pete Buttigieg is a complete Gramsci Marxist. That's what he is. But Gramsci is all about selling it soft. You know, you don't talk about revolution, you talk about social change. But that's what he is. Elizabeth Warren has been actively involved with Democratic Socialists of America for more than 15 years. Also heavily involved with a pro-Chinese communist group called the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. And it was a bit, there's a big division on the left right now because the Working Families Party just endorsed her instead of Bernie, who they endorsed last time. That's because the Freedom Road Socialist Organisation controls the Working Families Party, and they've decided to make Elizabeth Warren their candidate. She is a complete and utter Marxist, 100%. So we're starting to see a pattern here in any way. So then you've got Bernie himself. Well, the difference between Bernie Sanders' democratic socialism and communism is about 5 years. It's just a step on the way. He has worked with the Communist Party and Democratic Socialists of America his entire career. He went to Nicaragua to meet the Sandinistas. He went to Cuba to meet Castro. He honeymooned in the Soviet Union during the Cold War. He is still working with the Communist Party. They completely control his movement right now. He does nothing. The Green New Deal, all of the policies he's promoting come straight out of the Communist Party. All of them. And his Sanders Institute works with Greek communists, Latin American communists. He talks about, I want to make America like France or Germany or Norway. Well, why are all the people he works with not from there, but from the Communist Party of Austria, from the Communist Party of Brazil, from the Communist Party of whatever? He doesn't have anybody from Norway or Holland on any of his boards or associates. That leaves one more, and I believe, still I'm hanging on to this, that she will be the nominee. But whether I'm right or wrong, they are all Marxists, and that is Kamala Harris. Now, Kamala Harris's father was a Marxist professor at Stanford. Democratic Socialists of America recruited him as an affirmative action Marxist. They didn't have enough Marxists on their staff, so they went and found one, and they actually recruited him to the university. Him and his wife, who was a descendant of an Indian, Asian Indian revolutionary family, were early founders of a group that became the Black Panther Party. Kamala Harris went to Howard University, where she worked with the Marxists there. Then she went back to San Francisco and she hooked up with Willie Brown, who became the mayor of San Francisco, a lifelong Communist Party supporter and one of the biggest pro-Chinese radicals in San Francisco. And the Chinese run San Francisco. It's completely run out of Beijing. So she has promoted several Marxists through her career, including one who was a member of the Standing Together to organise a revolutionary movement, who worked with a man called Van Jones. She is completely a Marxist, and she is the protege of a man called Stephen Phillips, a former member of the League of Revolutionary Struggle, who married into the Sandler family of San Francisco, who had a savings and loan they sold for $26 billion to Wachovia, pocketed $2.6 billion, half of which they put into the left-wing movement. They set up the Democracy Alliance, which is Tom Steyer, George Soros, Norman Lear, about 150 left-wing billionaires, and Steve Phillips tells them where to put it. Steve Phillips's logic is real simple. Democrats, don't go to the middle, forget the middle. Forget the middle. Stop wasting all your money trying to shift 1% of the population to your direction. There are millions of people in the southern states, the southwestern states, particularly Latinos, blacks, whatever, who are Democrats, but they don't vote. That's where you put your money. He argues in his book, Brown is the New White, which was endorsed by Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama, 23% of the electorate are progressives of colour. 28% are white progressives. 23 plus 28 is 51%, the new American majority. We just gotta get them voting. Steve Phillips and Kamala Harris both backed Andrew Gillum, the Marxist who almost won the governor's race in Florida last year, lifted the Democrat vote by 40%. They almost won in Georgia with Stacey Abrams, another Steve Phillips protege, backed by Kamala Harris. They lifted the black vote there by something like 35%. They did win in Arizona with Kyrsten Sinema, the Communist Party supporter, who is now a senator, because there were 200,000. Trump won Arizona by 200,000 votes, but there were 600,000 Latinos in that state who could have voted but didn't, and that's who they signed up. That's where all the money is going. They're going to make this election completely about race. It's all going to be identity politics, and they aim to win with 51, 52, 53% of the vote. That's their plan. Now, the great news is Donald Trump's been screwing it up for them. Because now Latino support for Trump has gone up 25% in Texas, and black support for Trump is around the 25% mark, which you haven't seen since Abraham Lincoln, people. You know, why did Trump win Michigan? Because instead of 96% of the black population in that state voting Democrat, only 92% did. And this is freaking the Democrats out, people, because their path to victory is to cobble all the minorities together until they get 51%. And if they lose 5 or 10% of the black community, they're done. If they lose 5 or 10% of the Latino community, they can never win again. And that doesn't even count those white union guys out in Pennsylvania and Ohio that Trump brought across. If that continues, folks, the whole Democratic playbook crumbles. This is why this is a super critical election, because it's the Democrats' last chance. Their plan is they're going to try and destroy Trump any way they can. They destroy his base, and they're going to run either Elizabeth Warren or Kamala Harris, and I believe it will be Kamala Harris, at the top of the ticket to energize the black and Latino vote. And when they win, they will then legalize all of the 22 million illegals in the country right now, who will vote how much Democrat, do you think? You know, Mitt Romney lost his election by 2.5 million votes. Donald Trump won by about 200,000 thanks to the wisdom of your founding fathers and the Electoral College, and lost the popular vote by 3 million. So what do you think's why do you think Hillary Clinton promised to legalize every single illegal immigrant in the country within 100 days of taking office? That would have given the Democrats 15, 16 million new votes for the next election. You would immediately have lost North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Arizona, and probably Texas. How are you going to win ever again if that happens, folks? How do you do it? So I want you to understand, on election night 2016, you are that close to losing your country. That close. I did math before Common Core, people. I'm confident of my figures. So this is why, as they say all the time, this is the most important election of our lives. Well, this one is. Because if when Trump wins again, you're going to have an economic boom like you've never seen. Those taxes are going to keep coming down. The regulations are going to keep coming off. You're energy dependent now. You're going to have a wall to keep the illegals out. So when all this money comes flowing into your economy, you're not going to have an endless supply of illegal labor to keep wages down. Your wages are going to go up like you've never ever seen. You're going to have an economic boom like you've never seen before. So how do you think the Democrats' chances are going to rate after another 4 years of that, folks? They're done. This is why they're so desperate. It's their last shot. Either they win and destroy the country, or we win and destroy them. That's what it's coming down to. And I want to add one more thing before I finish. You know, one of the most important things your president's done, and he's done lots of them, is to change the composition of the judiciary. He has put more conservative judges into the judiciary than any other president. Even the Ninth Circuit is now almost conservative, folks. This is going to have massive implications for your religious liberties, your gun rights, regulations, education, all of these things in the next few years. Now, the big problem has always been in this country for many years. For 60 years, the left have controlled the Supreme Court. And they will make a decision which is completely unconstitutional. They'll call that precedent. Then they'll pile another decision on top of that and another one on top of that, until 70% of what your federal government does is unconstitutional. And it's holding you back with your business regulations. It's screwing up your education system. It has massive implications for your freedom of speech, your Second Amendment rights, all the things that make America great. Well, now, after 60 years, you have a 5-4 majority on the Supreme Court. And I know that Roberts is a flake, people, don't worry, I know that. But at least he votes your way more than he doesn't. And a lot of very good decisions have come down. Well, you imagine 6 years' time, Ruth Bader Ginsburg is getting pretty old, people. You know, she's well into her 80s now. She's had 3 cancer scares. People, 6 more years. She has said publicly she would like to go and retire in New Zealand. That's what she wants to do, right? Okay. Well, I'm willing to take one for the team, people. I'll do it. I'll suck it up. She can come down there, play bingo all day long, and you'll have a 6-3 majority on the Supreme Court. Okay? Imagine what that will do to wind back Roe v. Wade, all the unethical government programs you've been pushed on you, the corruption of your education system. All the things Conservatives have been fighting for years will be within your ability to change for the first time in your lifetimes. Is that worth getting fired up about, folks? That chance to take your country back. And it all depends on what happens over the next 16 months, 15 months. So what I'm saying, real clear, we are facing, Donald Trump Jr. said the 2016 election will be communism versus freedom. And he was not exaggerating. Not at all. So the downside is horrible if we do not make the maximum use of this God-given chance we've been given. We'll only have ourselves to blame if we blow this, folks. But the upside is fantastic. You'll have an economic boom like you've never seen. You'll have a liberty boom like you've never seen. But most of all, you will have a chance to hand your children not just the amazing country that you inherited, but one even greater. Is that worth fighting for?
Yes.
So I want to say to you people, thank you so much for what you do for liberty, for America, and for my country. God bless America, and God bless New Hampshire, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Croc TV.